The United States has the largest incarceration rate in the world compared to other NATO countries, according to Emily Wildra in her article States of Incarceration, the Global Context in 2024. For being the land of the free, we're not very free compared to other countries. And so today I'm going to discuss how the correctional system is currently set up for punishment and how it should focus more on rehabilitation instead. I'm a criminal justice student and I currently hold my paralegal certification, so I have a little bit of experience to be able to speak upon this. Today I'm going to discuss the recidivism rate in America compared to Norway, specifically Norway because they focus on rehabilitation rather than punishment as in their jail systems and prison systems. Today I'll focus on the cost of rehabilitation versus incarceration, and I also have testimony from a correctional officer who worked at one of the largest U.S. facilities. So the United States should focus more on rehabilitation rather than punishment, and you can see that it is currently set up for punishment with the Crime Bill of 1994. Robert Aberle does a really great job in his book, The Administration of Justice, discussing how the prison population saw a spike because of the Crime Bill of 1994 and how the U.S. got tough on crime. And so we see the recidivism rate in America surging because people are being rearrested as well. So there was actually a study that tracked 404,638 state prisoners from 30 different states who were released in 2005, found that 67.8% of them were rearrested within 3 years, and 76.6% were rearrested in 5 years. This can be found in Caitlin Dixon's 2014 blog post, America's Recidivism Nightmare. So I know that we don't really give a lot of support to people who have been arrested, and that is part of why we have such a high recidivism rate, is that they get rearrested because they don't have any resources or any means to get out of that. And some people will say, well, if they did the crime, then they should do the time. But what good is that time if it is not spent improving oneself, if it's not spent improving the community around you? So I propose that instead of focusing on punishment, we should focus more on rehabilitation, such as the way that Norway does. And Norway's recidivism rate is about 20%, and you can find this in Cinnamon Janser's 2019 article, North Dakota Reforms Its Prisons Norway Style. So we see that Norway has great success with this, and we see other jails and prison systems deciding to take note and making changes to better improve the lives of the criminals. It's also interesting to see how the prison in Norway is actually boasted as one of the most humane prisons in the world. And this is Halden Prison. Amelia Gentleman's 2012 article talks about it inside Halden, most humane prison in the world, how it's akin to a hotel, just a hotel you can't leave. And so they try to make it as normal as possible for you, so that way you can continue to live your life, and when you get out of jail or prison, you can be a contributing member of society. Because right now, how America does it, you sit in a 6-by-8 foot room with nothing to do but sit and think and wallow in the misery. And you're expected to be fully rehabilitated afterwards when you haven't done anything to try and better yourself. So for people who do have mental health issues or have drug abuse issues, they're not getting any help while they're in jail. A lot of the time they're detoxing without any assistance, and that's really stressful on them. So the next thing I would like to discuss is actually going to be the cost. So a lot of people will say, well, what's the point? Why would you want to spend the money on rehabilitating a prisoner if they're just going to be rearrested? Well, one of the things that I would like to point out is that it's actually more cost effective to rehabilitate somebody rather than incarcerate them. So in Elevation Health's 2024 blog post, they talk about how it's $31,000 per prisoner per year to incarcerate them, whereas it is about $10,000 to $15,000 for a rehabilitation program per person per year. So just from a cost savings perspective, just from a business perspective, it makes more sense to rehabilitate someone. And that's just the direct benefit that we see. Some of the indirect benefits are going to be the recidivism rate, like I mentioned. If you have rehabilitation programs in place and you're setting people up within the community, they're less likely to reoffend. And then also having more support within the community makes the community stronger. The last piece of information I'd like to go over today is actually going to be in regards to my dear friend Clay Arthur Weaver III. He was a correctional officer at one of the largest U.S. facilities. He saw a lot of people that were rearrested or had been arrested and were returning to jail. But he also talked about the unfairness of it all from the very beginning, about how if you can't make bail, then you would just sit in jail until your trial. And sometimes the people that are sitting and waiting trial aren't even guilty. So he had mentioned how one of his prisoners was actually sitting in jail for about 3 years. And at the end of the 3-year mark and they hit the trial, they were found not guilty. So that entire time they were innocent, sitting in jail with other people. And you'll see that it's about 457,000 people out of the 2 million who are housed in correctional facilities who are actually haven't even been convicted yet. So from the very beginning, Sawyer and Wagner talk about this in their 2024 article, how people will be treated unfairly just because they're arrested. They lose their job because they have to be out of the workforce for so long. And then how do they explain their lapse on their resume? We have no support system for these people. And so Clay Arthur Weaver III also agrees that we need to focus more on rehabilitation and providing more community support for the people who have been arrested. So that way they can get a leg up. They can make a change in their lives. They can make a change in other people's lives. They contribute to the community and to society as a whole. Everyone benefits. And so today I discussed the recidivism rate in America compared to Norway. I also discussed the cost of rehabilitation versus incarceration and went over some testimony from a correctional officer who has experience with the jail system. So I hope that you find it in your heart to reach out to somebody about this. It affects millions of people. Millions of people are housed in correctional facilities. And so we should have a voice in how they're being treated. We should have a voice in how things are going with the correctional system. And so we should reach out to our elected officials and do something about it. Pressure them to make changes. When we vote, we may have a voice. When we vote on laws, we make changes. And so please, I urge you to reach out to your elected officials and do something about the correctional system.